In the beginning, of course, Clinton and Killingworth were the same town, and the first church was in what's now Clinton. So when people began moving north, they still had to go all the way south down to Clinton for church. And that was often very difficult, especially in winter. It was almost mandatory to go to church in those days. After a period of time, the people living in the north petitioned to form their own ecclesiastical society, which was really just a separate parish. And that was granted in 1735. This church started to be built in 1817, and it was finished in 1820. Around that time, this church had the largest membership of any church in Middlesex County. The residents of the town made great sacrifices to build this church.
So all members of the church who were also taxpayers, who also were voters, were taxed to build the church.
There was a tax of 25 cents on the dollar of the residents of town, which was a huge tax. And many people contributed to the building of the church, supplies, labor, and so on. It cost about $8,500 to build the church, which doesn't sound like much now, but then it was really a very large amount. Church services then were quite a bit different than they are now. There were two services. There was one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and each one lasted 2 or 3 hours. In between, though, there was a break, and that was really a social period. There were buildings, usually small buildings, called Sabbath day houses near the church. Fires could be built in there in the winter when it was cold. They could do cooking, and people would go out to these and socialize and eat, and then they'd go back to the afternoon service.
I think especially in New England, we are very historically focused. We honor our ancestors and the traditions. The symbol of religious freedom was what founded this country, and people came here to practice their freedom of religion in the way that they chose. And in particular in New England, the white church on the hill in every town was a symbol of that freedom.
The design of the building is attributed to Ithiel Town, who was a well-known architect in Connecticut at the time.
This meeting house bears the mark of a very crafty designer. It's a beautifully done building. I find it a fine example of federal period architecture.
Every time I drive by it, I look up on the hill, and it just kind of centers me and gives me a little peaceful feeling when I drive by. And I hope it brings it to a lot of other people as well.
So it's a very fine building in a prominent place that's held together by virtue of the craft involved in its original construction. And it's worth keeping some paint on it.
It's a beautiful old structure, and things aren't built this way anymore, and there are fewer and fewer, and it's very important for this town and for the church to have this structure as a centerpiece for our town.
But we've come to a time now where some major restoration projects need to be done.
The interior dome has some water staining in it, and it's gotten worse over the last 2 or 3 years. So last summer we had a little extra money from the insurance company, so we put a new roof on the church, and so that stopped all the leaking. But we've got the resulting stain damage, and that damage itself has got to be repaired. We currently are wrestling with the fact that domes on old congregational churches normally last about, this is the interior suspended plaster lath dome, usually lasts about 100 years, and we're going to be 200 years old. And so we want to make sure that the plaster lath hanging ceiling has been stabilized. From there we go to the exterior. The exterior is composed of 2 phases. One is the steeple phase, and the second is the rest of the exterior. So the exterior encompasses 4 different sides, but the front of the church is got the most ornate carpentry, and that's what needs the most attention. From there we go to redoing the bell. The clapper is no longer functional, and the yoke that holds the bell itself, which is at least a ton, is not functional either. The carillon is going to be replaced so that the loudspeakers in the steeple itself will play gentle music at noontime at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. From there we go to the carpeting and the cushions in the church, which are badly faded.
To keep this building and the whole campus going is terribly important to Killingworth as well, because we are one of the centers of town, and not just the people who come here love it. Many people from all backgrounds and faiths love this whole campus and the church itself. It's been at the hub of so many things for so many years.
Because it's a small town and people know each other, and it's another wonderful way for people to get together both spiritually and in the community with people who attend this church and who don't. It's not just a church for worshipers, it's a church for the whole town, and a structure and a community for the whole town.
And so it's a great gathering place. It's a place where people can come and commune with one another. It's a place that the community actually uses our facilities. The Boy Scouts are here, the Lions Club, the Girls Choir is here, Alcoholics Anonymous is here, and we have the Martial Arts School here. And so we are extension of the community, and people feel comfortable to come in, and they feel comfortable with the services, that we provide them here in the facility, and we do what we can to accommodate.
God is not the building, but the symbol that the church represents of freedom of religion and freedom to be an American the way you want to be. We have an obligation to continue that on. And our church in particular, I always felt so much comfort in the sanctuary because it is a dome. So when you sit in there, you feel the comfort of God surrounding you.
I believe that this church matters because it is a place where people can feel welcomed, all kinds of people. It is a place where we serve and worship God. It is a place where we believe that we can make a difference in the lives of others.
The church has always been a mixture of people from different backgrounds, and I think that gives it the strength it has. We're all here basically for the same reason, but we bring strengths and gifts from God to it, and we share, and I think that makes a church stronger.
We really enjoyed the church. We were welcomed into the church. We kind of felt like it was a church family. We've just made a lot of good friends and good connections and doing the work of Jesus. So,
church is important to me because it's like a family for the community. It's like a safe place for all of us, and it's like connecting to our beliefs and just being family and being friends with all of it.
It's a family, and we know one another. If someone is missing, we know that that person isn't here.
It's a place where people become a big family, and it teaches you about God and the Holy Bible. Also, it matters to me because you can learn to take care of the world and be responsible for others and show everyone about God, the Holy Ghost, and Jesus.
I was taken with the aura of history, but later on it became much more than that. I learned to experience the love of this place. It was at first the history, then later the love. I used to leave his skiing weekends just to come here on Sundays.
But I think what's most important is that we exist here, not only as a monument for our community, but a monument for the people.
I think we owe it to our forefathers to maintain these symbols of our early American culture and hopefully preserve it for the future. So it stands as a symbol for our freedom of religion.